if you've never seen a sanctuary full of campers, usually they're outdoors, up and singing this and moving their hands back and forth like it's a revival. That's, you can tell I wish I were still a camper. I really do wish I were still a camper. So actually, I'm going to take you back to when I was a camper in Israel, believe it or not. I was 16. It was one of my many, many trips to Israel, the second of many. And we had this brilliant teenage idea. You see, back then, the word supervision did not enter into any organized teen trip. So there was no supervision. So at 11 o'clock at night, we decided what we needed was to go see the Kotel, to walk through the streets of Jerusalem and see what the Kotel looked like hello, who's there? See what the Kotel looked like at 11 p.m. Of course, by the time we got there, it was even later. So we walked the empty streets of the old city. We found our way to the Kotel, and here we were, my friend and I, two boys, approached the men's section. And we walked through that nearly empty plaza at that time, and as we grabbed those paper kippot that they give out and stuck it on our head, an ancient beggar, probably as old as the walls of the Kotel itself, approached us. And he stopped us in our tracks, and he said, Kodem avarechetchem, Kodem avarechetchem. My Hebrew was good enough to understand what he was saying. First, I'm going to bless you. First, I'm going to bless you. So facing that wall with this beggar in front of us, hands at our side, I put my hands in my pocket, and he made me take them out and put them on my side. He put those gnarled hands on top of those paper kippot, and he said the words. He said, Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, may God bless you and keep you. So I figured nothing's for free in Israel, so I reached into my pocket, and I pulled out some coins, and I was giving them to him, and he refused the coins, and he told me to keep my money. He said, it's my gift to you. An unforgettable gift, clearly, if it was this many years ago and I'm still talking about it, from someone who had nothing else to give except for his blessing. And I looked up at those ancient stones, the bushes poking through the cracks, and I got close and I saw the notes of countless pilgrims and those who come to pray and jam those notes into those cracks of that wall. For this kid who was standing there those many years ago, the wall was a symbol. It was a symbol of a Jerusalem that hadn't been united that much earlier. It was a symbol of a Jewish homeland, and it was a touchstone, literally a touchstone, for that youthful Zionism that my parents had inculcated in my heart and beat powerfully. So standing there and running my fingers along the polished stones, polished because so many Jews had touched them and leaned on them and touched them, I flashed to a picture that maybe you've seen. It's an iconic picture of Moshe Dayan with the soldiers on either side, the paratroopers standing there, and it was 50 years ago, this past June, and they spoke the words that echoed across centuries, no doubt. HaKotel b'yadenu. The Kotel is in our hands. We have the Kotel. They had united Jerusalem after thousands of years, and they had given the gift of that eternal wall to the Jewish people, to the Jewish world. But since those storied days in June of 1967, the truth about the Kotel is that it has been wrenched from our hands. It's been handed over to the authorities of Israel's Orthodox rabbinate. And now, if you're a Reformed Jew, if you're a secular Jew, if you're a conservative Jew, if you want to stand together with your spouse, if your spouse is either a man or a woman, if you're a gay couple, if you're women in clothing that's deemed to be immodest, the Kotel lo biyadenu. The Kotel is not in our hands. We're not welcomed at the wall of the Jewish people. Now, the wall is far more than a cosmic gateway to God. You know, you've seen the pictures of the chassid holding his cell phone up to the wall so his buddy in New York can pray, because the prayers coming through in their minds were a way of getting closer to God. It's far more than that. It's far more than a prayer space, because it's actually a symbol of Jerusalem in Jewish hands. It's a symbol of a thriving Israel. It's a symbol of the vision that our people have had for what Israel would be for the entire Jewish world. It's the Zionist dream. That's why this week's decision is so upsetting. It's not to to abrogate the agreement that was decided upon in good faith for conservative and Reform Jews to have access to the wall. It's a tragedy that it's been abrogated, because now a united Jerusalem is actually divided for the Jewish people. And that Jewish nationalist Zionist dream, well, this week it was dashed against the rocks. If you haven't seen the picture of the Jewish Journal, there's a crack in the wall. It's more than a crack, it's a chasm in the wall. And the reaction from the Jewish world, from AIPAC to J Street, from the New Israel Fund to the Jewish Agency, everyone's on the same page. It reveals the destructiveness of this about-face by the government. And as liberal Jews throughout the world, we were shut out by this push for Orthodox exclusivism. But Israeli Reform and conservative Jews also faced something which was kind of lost in the news. They were given a double blow because the conversion bill that would outlaw conversions or declare that conversions by Reform and conservative rabbis in Israel would no longer be accepted by the government of Israel. And you have to understand how complicated that is. If I perform a conversion here in this country, it's accepted by Israel. But now what they've done with this law, and it's only had a first reading or second reading, is they said if a Reform or conservative rabbi in Israel performs a conversion, it's not accepted by the government of Israel. Forget the Orthodox established, the government. If the Orthodox rabbinate had their way, and their politicians are doing everything they can to make it happen, Israel would be an Orthodox synagogue. Now I want to explain to you what that means. Because what would happen is all religious policy in the land would follow Orthodox practice. Every hotel would be kosher. Every citizen would be coerced into observing Shabbat as the Orthodox desire. Every wedding, every divorce, every funeral, every baby naming, every celebration that's Jewish would follow Orthodox custom. You see, why do I call it a synagogue? Why do I say Israel? Once the Orthodox want Israel to be a synagogue? Because the synagogue reflects the flavor of the folks who pray within it. Stephen Wise is a Reform synagogue. We reflect the flavor of Reform Judaism. An Orthodox Jew wouldn't be comfortable in this synagogue. And we don't expect an Orthodox Jew to be comfortable in the synagogue. It's not directed at Orthodox Jews. Beth Jacob in Beverly Hills, that's an Orthodox synagogue. You walk into that synagogue, they reflect the flavor of Orthodox Judaism. Some Reform Jews wouldn't be comfortable in that synagogue. But it works for the folks who go there, and this place works for the folks who go to our place. That's what a synagogue is. Israel can't be an Orthodox synagogue. It can never be an Orthodox synagogue. The Zionist dream wasn't to create an Orthodox synagogue. The Zionist dream was to create a Jewish homeland. The Zionist dream was to recognize that Jews come in all stripes. There are tattooed Jews, there are Buddhist Jews, there are gay Jews, there are transgender Jews, there are Jewish atheists, there are Jews who never go to synagogue, there are Jews who sometimes go to Reform and conservative synagogues, there are Jews who hate being Jewish, but they're still Jewish. That's the most natural state of being Jewish, it seems. But the Zionist dream was all of those folks would have a home in Israel. That's what it means to have a Jewish homeland. There can be no denominational supremacy or favoritism in the homeland of the Jewish people. So when I stood at that kotel as a 16-year-old boy, and this young Reform Jew put a paper kippah on his head, I was able to be blessed and find meaning in the blessings of a Jewish beggar. He didn't care what I did for Shabbat the week before. He didn't judge me on whether or not I had payas, whether or not I was modestly dressed. I wasn't. I had short Ocean Pacific purple shorts. It was the style back then. But at that instant that he touched his hands and put them on my head and my friend's head, we weren't Orthodox, Reform, or conservative. We were just Jews. We were just Jews in the Jewish homeland, walking the streets of our land. And that's the way it needs to be. Rabbi Daniel Hartman, modern Orthodox Jew who thinks deeply about what it means to create a Jewish homeland for all Jews. I call him a modern-day sage. He said this: if we learned anything through the unification of Jerusalem, it's that Jerusalem and the Kotel are not a synagogue, not the sole inheritance of one ideological group. Jerusalem is a symbol connecting all Jews to their past and to their future. Jerusalem, when treated properly, is a catalyst for Jewish unity and Jewish peoplehood. And that's the reason that despite these setbacks, our communities, Reform and conservative Jews in Israel, Reform and conservative Jews in the United States, will continue to fight for access to that powerful symbol. And it's not merely because we want our Jewish boys and girls to be able to become bar and bat mitzvah, or members of our community to be able to walk up and pray at the wall together with their spouses. That's not the only reason. We're fighting for access to the wall because it's the fulfillment of thousands of years of Jewish dreams for a united country that recognizes all Jews. And because of the countless sacrifices of Israeli lives who've defended the nation and secured Jerusalem for our people and secured the land so we can enjoy visiting it. And because the dreams of the Jewish people, the aspirations of the Jewish people, are really written in blood on those ancient stones. And they're written for all of us, so that we can not only have access to the wall, but so that we recognize that our land, the land of Israel, is a Jewish homeland. So may it be.